My stepmom tried charging me rent when I turned 18, unaware I legally owned the house we shared. I turned 18 and instead of a celebration, I got a bill. My stepmom handed me a typed document with a breakdown of rent, utilities, and a warning that failure to pay would result in eviction. She even highlighted the due date in red. She acted like a landlord, telling me this was standard procedure, now that I was legally an adult. What she didn't know was that the house we lived in hadn't belonged to my dad for years, and definitely not to her. The house was legally mine as of that morning. She just didn't know it yet. She gave me the paper over breakfast like it was some normal, adult thing. I didn't respond. I just looked at the paper, nodded, and told her I'd think about it. She smiled, smug and satisfied, like she finally had control over me now that I wasn't a minor anymore. She'd been waiting for this moment, thinking it was her turn to set the rules. But she had no idea that all her assumptions were based on lies she told herself, and things my dad never bothered to explain to her. It took everything in me to stay quiet and not laugh. The fact that she genuinely believed she could charge me rent in a house that legally had nothing to do with her was wild. It wasn't just arrogance. It was full-on delusion. She thought my turning 18 gave her the green light to start treating me like some unwanted tenant. But from that moment, I wasn't a tenant. I was the landlord. My mom died when I was 10. She and my dad had owned the house together. After her death, her share of the property was placed in a trust for me. I didn't know much about it at the time, but as I got older, my dad explained it little by little. He never told anyone else about the trust, not even his new wife. He said it wasn't something that concerned her. 2 years after my mom passed, my dad remarried. His new wife moved into the house and acted like she owned it from day one. She never asked questions about who the house legally belonged to, and my dad never offered any explanation. She just assumed that since she was married to him, everything in the house, including the property itself, was hers by default. My dad didn't correct her, and I didn't either. I didn't see a reason to. When I was 13, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. It was a slow decline. He started getting his affairs in order soon after the diagnosis. He met with a lawyer multiple times and went over everything he needed to settle before he died. One of those things was the house. He wanted to make sure it would fully transfer to me once I turned 18. I was told about the plan and shown the documents, but we didn't tell anyone else. His wife stayed out of it because she never bothered to get involved in legal matters. She thought everything was already hers, so she didn't ask questions. After my dad died, I was still a minor. Legally, the house wasn't fully mine yet. But that didn't stop her from treating it like it belonged to her. She walked around calling it her home, made changes to it without asking anyone, and always acted like she was in charge of everything. I kept quiet and focused on finishing school. I knew what was coming when I turned 18, and I didn't want to start a fight before I had full control. After my dad's death, nothing about the living arrangement was discussed. I stayed in the house because I had nowhere else to go, and she didn't say anything about it until I turned 18. During those years, she treated me like I was a guest overstaying my welcome. She reminded me often that she paid for groceries and handled the bills. She said I needed to be grateful she let me stay. She made changes to the house without asking anyone. She repainted rooms, replaced furniture, and even had part of the kitchen remodeled. She said it was her right as the homeowner. I didn't argue. I didn't comment on anything. I didn't correct her. I knew that legally, she had no claim to the house. The lawyer confirmed the documents were in place, and once I turned 18, the house would transfer entirely into my name. I stayed quiet on purpose. I finished school, kept my head down, and waited. I avoided unnecessary conflict. The trust arrangement was clear. The property would be mine when I became an adult. There was nothing she could legally do to stop that, and I didn't need to give her any warning before it happened. The closer my birthday got, the more she acted like she had some authority over me. She made stricter rules, started reminding me about responsibilities, and acted like she was preparing me for adulthood. But she wasn't helping me. She was trying to make it clear that I was under her control. She assumed I had no other options and that this was her house. On the morning of my 18th birthday, she left the rent notice on the kitchen table. It was typed out, with my name on it, and had a full breakdown of what she expected me to pay: rent, utilities, internet, and a line that said, maintenance fee. The total came out to more than half of what someone would pay for a one-bedroom apartment in our area. She had highlighted the due date in red and attached a second page that said failure to pay would lead to eviction within 30 days. She didn't say happy birthday. She handed me the papers and said, "Now that you're an adult, it's time you contribute." She said it like she was doing me a favor by being formal about it. She said I had lived there long enough for free, and it was time to act like an adult and take responsibility. I didn't say much. I told her I'd think about it. She took that as a win and said she'd expect payment on the date she listed. I left the house later that day and went straight to the lawyer's office. He handed me the updated deed with my name listed as the sole owner. He explained again that the house had been co-owned by my parents, and once I turned 18, the trust finalized the transfer. The property was now entirely mine. I signed a few more papers and got a certified copy of the title in my name. The transition had gone exactly as planned. I didn't go back and tell her right away. I waited. I wanted her to believe everything was going according to her plan. She didn't bring it up again for 2 days, and during that time, she acted like she was in control. She made more comments about the new arrangement, and left a chore list for me that included things like yard work and taking out the trash as part of rent duties. I did none of it. I waited for the right time. 2 days after my birthday, I sat her down at the kitchen table. I handed her a printed notice. It was short and clear. It stated that as of my 18th birthday, I was the sole legal owner of the house. I included a copy of the title with my name on it and a letter from the lawyer confirming the transfer of ownership. I gave her 30 days to vacate the property. She didn't speak at first. She stared at the papers for a long time, then looked at me and asked if it was a joke. I said nothing else. She kept flipping through the documents, reading every line like she was searching for something to argue with. Then she started raising her voice, saying there had to be a mistake. She said the house was her home and that my dad would never do this to her. She started talking about how much money she had put into the house, how she had remodeled rooms and paid for things after my dad died. I didn't respond. She brought up the rent notice and said it was a fair request. She said she had every right to ask for rent, and I had no right to do this to her. I repeated that she had 30 days to move out. I said if she had any questions, she could contact the lawyer whose name and number were on the letter. She didn't take the paper. She just sat there stunned. I stood up and walked away. For the next few hours, she went back and forth between silence and yelling. She called my dad's parents, thinking they would take her side. But when I showed them the documents, they didn't argue. They said it was clear. The house belonged to me. She started making threats after that. She said she would get a lawyer and take me to court. She said she would fight for the house and prove that she deserved to stay. I didn't respond. I had already spoken with my lawyer, and he confirmed she had no legal claim. She was never added to the deed, never paid a mortgage, and had no written agreement that gave her any rights to the property. She accused me of trying to ruin her life. She said I was selfish, ungrateful, and acting out of spite. She kept repeating that she had been the one holding things together after my dad died, that I owed her for staying in the house. I ignored it. None of what she said changed the fact that the law was on my side. For a few days, she tried acting like nothing had changed. She went back to her routine, cleaning the kitchen like usual and leaving the same lists of chores. She didn't mention the eviction again, but I could tell she was trying to figure out what to do. She made phone calls late at night and left paperwork out on the table. I checked one of the folders when she wasn't home. It was full of notes about property rights, rent laws, and a list of local attorneys. She tried one last time to reason with me. She said we could work something out if I let her stay. She offered to pay me rent and take care of the house. She even said I could have the master bedroom if that would help. I didn't respond to any of it. I had already made the decision. She was going to leave. A week after I gave her the notice, she packed a few bags and left for a few days. I didn't ask where she went. When she came back, she said she was staying only until she figured out a new place. She tried to act calm, like everything was being handled reasonably, but her mood changed constantly. 1 minute she was quiet, the next she was slamming doors and accusing me of betrayal. She kept saying I had no respect for her, and that I was throwing her out like trash. I didn't respond. The documents were clear, and I had done everything by the book. There was nothing left to discuss. I didn't argue. I didn't explain anything again. I had no interest in debating what had already been settled by legal documents. She made a few more phone calls to people in the family, trying to get them on her side. Some of them reached out to me, but once I showed them the title and explained the trust from my mom, they backed off. No one wanted to get involved after they saw how solid the legal setup was. In the 3rd week, she started moving things out. She didn't say much. She avoided me most of the time. She filled her car with boxes and left quietly each time. I didn't help. I didn't stop her. I watched her take out everything she had added to the house over the years. Most of it didn't matter to me. By the end of the third week, most of her things were gone. She only had a few pieces of furniture left in the guest room. I gave her a written reminder that the deadline to vacate was coming up in a few days. She didn't respond. She stayed in her room with the door closed. I didn't bother her. On the final day, she left early in the morning. She didn't say anything. She didn't leave a note. She didn't even lock the front door behind her. I waited a few hours to make sure she wasn't coming back, then I changed the locks. I walked through the house and checked each room. Everything she owned was gone. Anything she left behind I kept. There were no more threats, no more calls from her after that. She went silent. I didn't hear from her again. I didn't follow up to find out where she went or how she was doing. She had no claim to the house, and I had no reason to keep any connection with her. I notified the lawyer that she had moved out and submitted the updated documents with proof that I had taken full possession of the house. Everything was finalized. There were no disputes filed. No legal action was taken. She was gone, and the house was mine without challenge. Now I live here alone. It's quiet. The space feels completely different. I no longer feel like a guest. I no longer feel like I'm waiting for someone to tell me what I can or can't do in my own home.